guess we're live for our Thursday Facebook presentation. We're coming to you from Historic Wendover Airfield, which is where we've come for the last few weeks. We're actually starting this week, or today, we're going to be talking about the B-29 hangar that was built specifically for the Manhattan Project work that went on. We are right now in the area that was Colonel Paul Tibbetts' office here in the B-29 hangar. I realize that it's doesn't quite look like it did at the time that he was here, but the veterans have told us that this corner office is the office that he occupied while he was here. It's one of the interesting things that we have in our museum, and some of you know the story, but we needed an antique radio, and I had called just randomly one day and looked through probably 50 radios, picked one out of the middle, called the guy and told him we wanted to buy it. We told him what it was for. It was for Wendover, and he said, well, I'll donate it. He said, I'll tell you the story. When I was about 6 years old, my father and I drove to Wendover Airfield. We went upstairs in a big hangar, and this is the only big hangar with an upstairs. And he said we got the radio and hauled it down. My dad kept it for years, gave it to me, and now it's back at Wendover. We can't prove exactly, but it's possible that that radio was sitting in this room with Colonel Paul Tibbetts, and that was his radio. So we've got a lot of work to do on this, these upper offices, but this is where all that work took place, all that test work at Wendover. Let's take a look down the hall. We're cheating, and we went right through the walls. But if you look down the hall, this is a very long hall. This building is 200 feet from that wall to the wall behind us. And the offices to the right, as you go down the hall, were the offices when the 509th was here, for the 509th members. When they left in June, from June through the end of the war, then these offices became the offices for the 216th Base Unit, and those were the offices that they used while they were doing all of their test programs. And of course, Mr. Shields was the one leading that. Dave Semple was one of the bombardiers of the group who really gained an incredible reputation for being a very, very accurate bombardier. He was killed later, and they renamed one of the planes Dave's Dream as they did the atomic work after the war. Anyway, let's walk down the stairs here, and we'll take a quick look outside. This actually, we've done a lot of restoration work on this hangar. So now it's a bit windy, and you will hopefully you can hear. One of the buildings you're looking at there with the tar paper is the navigational aid shop. We'll show you a before picture of that in just a little bit, but that's typical of the buildings here at Wendover when they were first built. They just built them with the tar paper and the lath strips. Didn't really have time to do more than that. Later they sided them, but that's how a lot of them looked when they first started. So we're looking at the west end of this hangar, and Interestingly, this hangar was put up in a very short amount of time. Paul Tibbets probably made his first trip here around the 1st of September. We have original drawings dated October of '44, so work really didn't begin on this until November, and by March 1, this hangar was up and functional. So 55,000 square feet, the slabs, all of this work was done in just a matter of a few months. So we'll take a walk inside. Actually, Landon, let's take a look at that little door up there. The B-29's tail is so tall that it can't get past these 24-foot high doors. So that little door up there is on a counterweighted, and there's a hand crank, and that door cranks up so that the tail of the B-29 can actually fit inside the hangar. So now we're inside the hangar. This slab is the original slab. It's in pretty good shape for being 75 plus years old. It is thick. It's a 12-inch thick slab. And this is where the B-29 aircraft were maintained. It's not where they were stored, because you could, at the very best, you could fit two in if you just squoze one in from one door and one from another. Typically only one would fit in at a time. So let's just take a quick walk and look at this side. Over here on this south side, they had an engine shop, a supercharger shop, and a general shop for maintenance of the aircraft. We've got a little bomb trailer here. This is, for you purists, that's not a World War II, that's just slightly newer than that. And our F-86L model, which the F-86 was used in Korea during the Korean War, primarily, more so the F-86s that had the big open nose and the machine guns in the nose. We've got a 1942 deuce and a half, 2.5-ton truck. Interesting story on this. This was actually taken over to Norway by the United States for use by the Norwegians. They later relabeled everything inside with Norwegian labels, and then a gentleman in the U.S. bought that and brought it back to the U.S. But that's a 1942, so that's about as original as it gets. This plane is isn't really World War II. This is a British jet Provost, which was Britain's first jet trainer, a side-by-side trainer. Over in the corner, as we're walking towards it, is a J-47 jet engine. That's the jet engine that was inside of the F-86. Also the engine that powered the B-47. And these tall wooden doors with the diagonal strips lead to the propeller shop. The propeller shop is very tall. It's over 24 feet tall. B-29 propeller assembly is 16.5 feet in diameter, so they had a trolley on top, and they could keep several propellers all assembled and staged within this propeller shop. And of course, on one end, then they had areas where they would maintain the propellers and do the servicing on the propellers. Walking over Let's see, Landon, there's everything in this hangar. I don't see, I'm looking for a part number on there. Yeah, there we go. This hangar was, the middle part was a pretty standard design. The offices on the side were custom designed for Wendover, but each of these pieces had a part number on them. So when you went to assemble the hangar, you put the B-180 straps on the vertical piece, whatever that number is. But all these parts are numbered so that it can be manufactured somewhere and come together easily. I want to talk, let's wander over to the Jeep. I want to talk just a minute, show you just a little bit about, oh, I thought you were going to hit that. The cameraman is Landon Wilkie, our museum curator, who did these first episodes, and we appreciate him. So for those of you that haven't been here, we wanted to talk just a little bit about what there is to see. We've got some before and after shots. This is the Navigational Aids Building, and you can see what it was like before we got started, and then what it's like once we got finished. The Officers Service Club, the Brinkman Club, every single window in that building was broken. The inside was an absolute disaster. So you can see the top, the before, and the after picture. In the mess hall and bar, this is a picture before actually at this picture we had already started to clean some of the junk out, but that's what it looked like before. And of course, what it looks like now, John Hellier, a Vietnam veteran that's worked with us, donated his time and built that bar on the exact spot of the original bar. This is a bomb site storage vault. There is a before picture, and the bottom shows the after picture. We talked, of course, one of our episodes was that building, but here is a scout troop volunteering and working with us on an Eagle Scout project to work on the windows. And then, of course, the bottom picture shows after we've gotten this completed. This building's a building we're currently working on. This was an administration building. The roof was literally getting ready to fall off. Well, it was falling off. It was falling in. The walls were bulging out. And we refer to this as the unrecoverable building. Thanks to Scott Gagan, who has helped donate a lot of materials for this, we've been able to bring this building back to the point. And it's actually a little further along than what is shown in this picture. The control tower, again, was full of junk. The windows were broken out. In fact, the windows had been modified from its original World War II configuration. So in the bottom picture showing the after, we were able to bring it back to the original window configuration and fix the inside so that it's very much like what was originally there. The barracks, again, here's a picture of volunteers working on the barracks that we've restored. We chose one of the barracks. This picture below was taken during our 2017 air show. And this is a place that we go on our tours. When we do an all-access tour, we'll go out to this barracks. And here we have some guys from the Hill Air Force Base on their training weekend out helping us in the dining hall. And we've stripped off all the old siding that just was too bad to paint or put on. We have some new siding, and that shows the work that they were done, the work that was done. Well, the other thing I'd like to talk just a little bit about is what kinds of things are we doing right now? He showed you a picture of the of the dining hall. You can see that false ceiling up here. We want to get rid of that false ceiling and get back to the point where we have the nice World War II wooden beams that will be exposed. So we've got to redo the floor, the ceiling. We have a number of other things that need to be done on that building. One of the interesting projects that we're working on funding for right now will be a new entrance to the barracks area with a guard shack and a gate, so that we can easily get into that and show what the original guard shack was like. Here's a picture of the original guard shack that's still on the base. It's not really structurally sound enough, but we're going to use that as a model to rebuild a guard shack that looks just exactly like that original guard shack. Over in the South Base area, this is Building 25. You can't see it, but over on this end, years ago, the police used the inside of this building as a gun range. And so this west wall is literally blown to pieces and needs to be reconstructed. The historic significance of this is that this is where the Manhattan Project did a lot of work on the fusing for the atomic weapons. So has quite a bit of historic significance. This is just one of the hangars. We want to work on another hangar, get another hangar up in shape. And at the top of the barracks row is where the latrine and shower building is. That's another fairly expensive project, but that's something that once it's completed, we'll be able to have Civil Air Patrol, scout groups, the EAA, whoever would like to stay in a barracks and be able to have showers and latrines. And finally, looking at the B-29 hangar, of course, this is the real prize. This is what we ultimately want to be our main museum. Scale-wise, you can see how big a B-29 is when it's sitting in there. The work that we need to do here, we've got to put in a fire sprinkler system. We've got to spray some insulation on the roof. We've got to do the electrical system. So it's not an inexpensive project. We've got a lot to do, but we've made huge progress on this. The building was really literally getting ready to fall over when we were able to get a Save America's Treasures grant and get this building to the point that it is right now. We're going to show you one more thing over here that we're working on in here. We've been working on the restrooms in here. Of course, it'd be nice to, when we have visitors, to have a restroom for them to use. So thanks to the state of Utah legislature and a little bit of money from some other foundations, the Eccles Foundation helped a little bit. We're working on restoring these restrooms. So this is the men's side of the restroom, and as you can see, we've gotten the building insulated. We've got all the rough plumbing done and sheetrock up. So we'll be putting a metal wainscoting on that looks a lot like aircraft skin. So when we're done with this, it'll be a pretty slick deal. Both the men's and the women's restrooms had a locker room that was adjacent to it. So this is the locker room. Yeah, and on this side is the family restroom. Still got a little work to do there. There are a number of things that are on the table as far as our planning is concerned. We want to come up with a new base shuttle, like a World War II weapons carrier, and a replica shuttle that was used back in the day for people to get from one building to another. And we envision using that shuttle, once we're able to acquire it, to take visitors from one building to another, from the control tower area to the Norden bomb site to this hangar, barracks, and so forth. We're working on a number of other projects, and I missed showing you the Celestial Navigation Building, but the Celestial Navigation Building is a really big project that down the road we hope to do, which really was a little miniature planetarium for the airmen to train to navigate by the stars, and for the bombardiers to train as well. Just a note on what we're doing and where we're headed. I was looking at a grant the other day, and it suddenly occurred to me that we have been working on this project since 2001, almost 20 years. I can tell you that the first half a dozen or 8 years was primarily spent convincing people not to bring a bulldozer and bulldoze this base down, because that was suggested by many, many people. And it was only through really just a significant effort that we were able to stop the destruction of this base, get some of the buildings re-roofed, and start kind of piecemeal on this restoration, which is what we had to do. Until recently, when we were finally able to bring Landon on board, virtually every bit of work in this on the base was on a volunteer basis. A volunteer basis, raising funds, getting people here, and finally getting it to work. This is the most original remaining Army Air Force base in the country, and we don't want to lose it. It's probably the only place that we can have a museum where visitors can walk in, see the buildings, walk on the ground, the actual ground where this work took place, and really get a sense of what it would have been like in the 1940s. Frankly, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot more funding to get to where we need to go, but we don't want to lose the memory of our veterans and those that worked here. Within a few short years, we're not going to have any World War II veterans left. And not understanding what went on at the time, the difficulties, the sacrifices, is something that we want to portray in this building, in the other buildings, in the original settings. And that's really where we're headed. That's really what we want to try to accomplish here at Wendover. So I realize that we've taken our time. Our time's about up. We want to remind you that right now we're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We hope to open up a little bit more as time goes on. But check out our website, wendoverairbase.com. We've got, of course, got our gift shop open. We do tours on typically around 1:30, 1:45, and people can go on those. That takes about an hour or a little over, depending on how much you talk to us. And that we hit a number of buildings. We hit the hangar, the Norden bomb site, atomic bomb loading pit, this hangar, and sometimes some of the other buildings. So we want to remind you about those tours. And always check us out. Landon's putting stuff on Instagram, material on Instagram. We've got, of course, our website, and we'll keep you posted on our website. We were going to have a tour of the gunnery range, and I think we're going to change that on our website to an all-access tour, so which will be a little bit later. But check the website, because we'd love to have you come on that all-access tour, which takes about Takes almost 5 hours. We feed lunch in the middle, but we hit the north part of the base, the south part of the base, the hangar, the bomb pit, and really give you a kind of an inside view of what's going on at the hangar. So again, we appreciate those of you that have been very faithful in listening to these broadcasts. This will be the last of the weekly broadcasts for a bit, and Landon will be putting some new material together for us. So until then, we thank you, and we'll see you later.